Okay, we're gonna do book review of Chosen by K.F. Breene. I listened to the audiobook because I just don't have time to read. So I listened to the audiobook. The audiobook was hard. The voice actress took some getting used to. And this has nothing to do with like the actual book, just the audiobook was very hard for me to get into because she paused at really weird intervals. And I don't know if it's because of the writing, like I didn't have a copy in front of me. So I don't know if she was pausing because there was a comma or something, but where she chose to pause and the words that she chose to put emphasis on was really distracting. It was kind of like listening to Shatner talk, and it struggled a lot, but eventually I got into it enough that I could get over it. So, Chosen is by K.F. Breene, the first in the Warrior Chronicles. I've read 3 other books by K.F. Breene. I've read the Born into Fire series, which was very good. So I was recommended that I should read the series. I recognize that Chosen is one of the first books that she has written. And it's funny because like looking back from the Born in Fire series to this one, you can tell it's the first one that she's written. I had some struggles with this book. Okay, so the synopsis that was on the back of Chosen, I'll just read it to you. It is said that when war threatens the world, one individual will be selected by prophecy to lead the shadow warriors out of the land of the mist and reclaim the freedom which has been stolen. That's like the blurb tagline. So the whole book is about this girl who is the chosen one to go find these shadow warrior people and defeat this big old warlord thing. So overall, I rated this book 3 out of 5. I wanted really badly to give this 4 stars, and I tried, but I just couldn't. As I was writing out this review, I just kept coming up with more and more issues that I had with it, so I couldn't give it quite 4 stars. So I gave it a solid 3. I really had some large issues with this book, but they weren't bad enough that I won't finish the series. Like, I've already downloaded the next book, so I'm going to continue the series. What was really interesting about this book though was the magic series. The magic system was completely different. Like, I hadn't really seen a magic system that involved with like mental powers, that like different kind of mental powers. Like, she can like read emotions and squish people's brains and stuff with like her mental powers. Like, it's very different. It's a very loose magical system. I don't know if there's a hard set of rules yet, or if there are, we haven't really discovered them yet. Her magic does seem to tire her out, which is the downfall of using magic, which I appreciated that there was a downfall, because in the very beginning I was like, why is this a fight? She could just like everybody's brains and this wouldn't be a book. So the magic does seem to tire her out, although the level of which it tires her out seems to vary on the situation. The other issue I had with this book is it fell into a lot of tropes and stereotypes, and like a lot. Clearly it fell into the chosen one trope. Like, literally the synopsis of the book is the definition of a chosen one trope. I don't always have an issue with that, but this was executed kind of poorly. Like, the back of the book kept talking about how she doesn't believe in her own divinity and doesn't believe in her destiny, and she thinks that she's just a fraud, but she's the best hope for her people, so she's going along with it. And that doesn't seem to carry through in the book very well. Like, sometimes she believes it, sometimes she doesn't. It's just very confusing. I really badly wanted the main character, Shanti, to just pick one. Like, do you believe it or do you not? Because you can't, she flip-flops back and forth, so. And she doesn't flip-flop in like a I'm undecided kind of way. She flip-flops in like a I can't pick one kind of way, and it just was frustrating. So she is chosen to lead her people or the world. I'm not really sure not really sure if she's supposed to like unite the world together, or if she's supposed to unite her people and another people together, or who she's uniting is unclear, but she's supposed to unite some people together to fight this big baddie in the world. Which leads me to the big issue, one of the biggest issues I had with this book is the baddie. The big baddie of this book is the Greygull, which I have no invested fear of these bad guys. They never appear in the book. They don't ever do anything in the book. The only reason we know the Greygull are the bad guys is because she tells us constantly, harpingly that they're the bad guys. Like, the only reason we think they're the bad guys is because she goes on and on and on about how terrible they are. But I have no reason to actually fear them or even believe that they're the bad people. Like, they're a conquering army that employs other armies to do their work for them. And so they're moving through the lands, conquering all. And they're led by some dude whose name is so freaking cheesy. The Being Supreme. Like, there's just so much cheese in that. Every single time they're like, they're gonna take me to the Being Supreme. I just couldn't. It was just so cheesy. Like, you couldn't come up with a better bad guy name than the Being Supreme. It's a whole lot of telling why these people are bad and why they're mean and scary and why we should all be afraid of them, but I have no reason to actually, like, I'm afraid of them because I've been told to be afraid of them. Kind of like in Harry Potter, how up until like the very end with the tournament, we're told to be afraid of Voldemort, but he never shows up and does anything. It's just his lackeys. Yeah, the whole book is just, we're supposed to be afraid of him, but actually all these other people are the one that's killing people. Like, you see a couple, so the Greygull are the bad guys, and they've conquered, employed, something along the lines of both. The Inkna, which I think is another army or a mercenary group. I don't know, it was really unclear. There's a lot of things that were unclear, and that might have been because I was really distracted by the narrator, and I'm willing to admit that. So the Inkna are raiding towns, and the people that Shanti ends up sticking with, because they find her and save her, they get attacked by the Inkna. And so, like, the Inkna are more of a problem throughout this entire book than the Greygull are. But she spends so much time talking about how bad all of the Greygull are, even though it's the Inkna that you see. I had a hard time putting together who the bad guys actually were and why I should be afraid of them. The other thing that really bothered me with the description of the Greygull and why they're the bad guys and why we should believe that, is she made them out to be, like, you know when you have a bad guy who's too much of a bad guy, like he's a stereotypically bad guy. Like, he does everything bad, he's horrible, and is like over the top, and it's cheesy, and it's overly dramatic, and that's how she described the Greygull. The reason the bad guys, the Greygull, are so bad is, it doesn't even seem to be that it's like they're a conquering army. It's that this army, when they conquer you, will rape and torture everybody to death. That's really bad. We can all admit that's a universal truth. That's a really bad thing we don't want to have happen. I don't need chapters of you telling me over and 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 over again that they're going to rape everybody, and then they're going to rape your men, and they're going to rape your women, and they're going to impregnate me, and they're going to sex slaves, and I get it. Like, it was so harpingly, they're really bad people because they're going to rape everybody. Like, I get it. Move on. Like, at this point, like, you've overexposed how bad they are and why they're bad, that I now no longer care. Like, every single time she told me that somebody else was gonna get raped and that somebody got raped and they're gonna, oh my goodness, cat, pick a seat. That I didn't care anymore. Like, oh, I was like, okay, this is what they do all the time, day and night. They just are raping everybody, day and night, all the time, constantly. That's all it is. And when they're not raping you, they're torturing you, and then they're torturing you, and then they're raping you, and then they're doing it at the same time. Like, It was so much. I almost stopped because I was just like, I get it. It's bad. Rape is really bad. And like the amount of just preachy that was coming from Shanti. So much of the book was her judging everybody else for everything. And it's just like this next issue that I had with the book piggybacks off of the last one. Is she's just so freaking judgy. She goes on and on about how everything's equal in her society. Women can be hunters, women can be fighters, men can be hunters, men can be the ones that stay home with the kids. Like, she's just so like utopian about her people. And like, my people are amazing, and the captain's people, the people who find her and save her, are what I would call a typical, I don't know, I had a really hard time placing the timeline for these people because they had zippers. Like, she makes a point of remarking on how a dress that she's wearing was zipped up and how she didn't know what that was. But then there's still like a Elizabethan kind of time period, and so I'm just like, where are they? Like, I could not, like, the zipper really threw me off. But then Shanti's people are like, oh, leatherwork is really pretty, you could make couches. And so I'm like, where are your people that you like? Well, anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. So these Elizabethan-esque people who have pretty standard male and female roles, like the women are the homekeepers and the men are the soldiers, and women are dainty and men are not. Pretty standard breakdown of the gender roles. So Shanti keeps being all judgy about the captain's people because they're not open-minded and they're so rigid in their gender roles and in their society expectations, and like, she's super judgy on them. But then she'll be like, my people are great, they're not judgy, they're open-minded, and we do what fits best for the individual. And I'm like, your people are fantastic and awesome and open-minded and peachy and super utopian, but you're being hella judgy on them because they're not. Like, I don't know, she did not strike me as a fun hero. I didn't really root for Shanti at all. I really didn't like her. I kind of liked the side characters a lot more because she was so judgy and just, your people are stupid because you don't think women can fight, but my people are fantastic, but I'm going to be super judgy while complaining that your issue is that you're judgy. I don't know. I did not like the characterization of the main character at all. She bounced back and forth between whether or not she wanted to be a badass or a despondent hero with nothing to live for. Like, she couldn't pick one, and when the despondent hero part came up, it came up out of blue. Like, they have a big battle, and right afterwards she's super depressed and refuses to eat and wants to die, and you're just like, where the hell did that come from? Because if that was built up, I missed it. I don't know. It was all over the place, and when I wasn't being confused about what mood Shanti was in, I was tired of being lectured about why raping people is bad and how my people are amazing because they don't let that happen. It was very lectury whenever Shanti was talking a lot of the time, and another thing that really frustrated me is the word choice. Shanti is a foreign woman in this land. She's extremely pale and fair, and the area that she's in, they're all like bronze-skinned and amber and dark hair and golden warrior gorgeousness. And the amount of times that she's referred to as the foreign woman, like, yo, she's fought 2 battles with you. She's on first name terms with your captain, leader, king guy. You've all saved each other's lives like a zillion million times. You know what her name is. Stop calling her the foreign woman. We know she's the foreign woman. Stop reminding us. I can remember that she's not from around town. You don't need to tell me every 3 pages that the foreign woman did a thing. Like, I get it. Something else that really bothered me about Shanti's characterization, aside from being just a judgy lecturer about human decency, is she's kind of a moron. Like, and she wasn't written to be a moron. So she talks about how she was trained to be a general and a warrior and a leader and a fighter, and she's supposed to like be the leading force that unites whatever it is that she's uniting. And she keeps reminding everybody around her how smart she is And she keeps trying to tell the captain how to lead and tell the captain how to fight and how he should direct his warriors and how to plan his strategy because she knows better. But then she makes some really, really stupid mistakes all the time. Like, she makes this decision that for the first half of the book is quite plot specific and driving about the captain because she just refuses to have a conversation with him. And this decision that she makes, I'm trying really hard not to be too spoilery. This decision that she makes, if she had just had a conversation with the captain about information he already knew and was aware of, if she just was like, hey bro, let's have a sit down, the entire like conflict in the first half of the book would have been unnecessary because it already felt unnecessary. She's trying to build up the suspense about how she's going to have to deal with the issue that this captain has. But as the reader, you're like, I'm pretty sure if you just do this, that's not an issue. And so it doesn't, like, the suspense already feels unnecessary. If she would just have had the conversation, the already unnecessary suspense would have been even further unnecessary. And then the other issue that I have, and this one I'm gonna put a spoiler warning up when I start talking. If y'all don't want this to be spoiled, just mute this video until the little spoiler warning goes away. Because in order to talk about this next section, I'm gonna have to spoil it a little bit. So, spoiler warning, mute until the thing goes away. At the end of the book, there's this big fight. She saves the people. The Inkna are trying to take over the captain's people. They retaliate and go rescue Sanders. Go and rescue him from the Inkna. During this big fight, they completely kick ass. Like, they whoop everybody's, like, they kill everybody. The captain does his mind magic-y stuff. She does the mind magic-y stuff. There's no way that this would have been, like, gone unnoticed. They completely destroy this Inkna encampment. And then she leaves. She's like, I can't stay here. It's gonna be dangerous. They're gonna be looking for me, and if I stay here, you're at risk. And then she leaves. And skips off in the middle of the night because she's gonna go away, and her being away is going to protect the captain and his people. You're an idiot. You spent an entire book telling me how you're a smart general leader person. Do you honestly expect me to believe that you believe that the Inkna aren't going to go after the captain's people anyway? They just had an entire town of theirs destroyed. And from everything you've told me, this is the first time this has happened. Do you think they're just going to be like, yep, we lost. We'll just move on. No! Are you gonna? No, duh, they're going to go after him again. And then she's like, well, I'll just go to this other town that's 2 days away and I'll just do a big blast of magical powery stuff. And then they'll know I'm over there and they'll leave him alone. They all knew that he had powers though. Like, you guys were all talking about it pretty openly and he helped you kick their ass. So do you think they're not going to be like, oh, they must have split up? No, that's so dumb. And then when she goes to this little tavern bar town thing, they, a whole bunch of conversations happen, which I'll talk about in a minute. I also have an issue with that. A whole bunch of conversation happens where she's like, oh yeah, this was a terrible idea. They are going to still go after him. And you're like, duh, we knew that 5 pages ago. What the hell? The author builds her up to be a character that her actions don't support. And it drives me insane. Like, the author builds her up to be this strong, fierce, independent warrior woman who makes terrible warrior decisions, who makes terrible battle plans. But she's all talk about how she's great at this, and this is what I was born to do. And I was born to do this, so I'm going to do this. But then the next page is, I don't even think I'm supposed to be doing this. Like, her actions and her words and what the author's built her up to be never, like, hardly ever line up. And it's just really jarring sometimes. The other thing that really bothers me was the very convenient and, wow, that was easy, access of information. So Shanti runs off at the end of the book, does a thing, and she ends up in this town. And she's staying in like it's like a tavern, and she's hanging out in the dining room of the tavern, hoping to get information out of people, which, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, if you listen, people are going to talk. And then she has, like, the bartender comes over to her and has this entire conversation that the entire thing had me going, because she's like, I'm not going to tell you your business, and then proceeds to tell her her business for, like, a page of dialogue. And so she sits there, and he's like, it's dangerous to travel alone as a woman. You should just stay in your room and until you can find a travel companion. Go away until you can find a travel companion. Fine, that seems like a semi-reasonable conversation to have in the time period. But then he continues to just spill the tea on everything that she needs to know right then. Thanks for telling me, though. That was convenient. And then he gives her all of this information that is relevant and that she needs. And that was like, nobody... I don't know what bars you're going to, but I'm pretty sure the bartender doesn't just give you every bit of information that he knows the second he sits down to talk to you, and then be like, oh yeah, I'm not going to tell you your business, but here's what you should do. It was so unbelievable. This entire conversation was so unbelievable, and it was such an easy, like, oh, that's everything you needed to know. Cool. Glad that happened. Glad that stranger happened to walk by right as you sat down. Like, and then it's a little bit more believable because then other people come in and sit down, like, at a table next to her, and she just eavesdrops a bunch, which is believable. But then the information that they have, like, the dude's anyway, this guy, I can't remember the word, he ran off from the Grey Gull army. Like, he bounced, whatever the word is, I can't think of it. And so if you've left the army, I don't know how he has all of the information that he has about the army and the army's inner dealings and workings and their plans. Because if I've bounced, the last thing I'm doing is sticking around in places where I can hear that stuff and get caught. So once again, all the information that this guy knows, while how she gets that information is more believable, the information he has, I don't understand how he has it and why it's anything trustworthy and why she takes it so seriously. Because it's all like, well, this is just a bunch of tall tales, and then gives like a whole bunch of really specific information that anybody running from a Imperial army wouldn't have. Like, unless he ran away yesterday, you wouldn't have all of this information. I don't know. It's just not very believable, but it was exactly what she needed right then. And so it's just kind of like, wow, that was easy. So I know I'm really harping on this book hardcore, and it sounds like I hated it, and I really didn't. I'm just pointing out large issues that I did have with it. These issues, while they frustrated me to no end, weren't so bad that I stopped reading it. And I'm not going to continue the series. Like, I am going to continue the series. I do know that the author gets better because I've read her later books. So I want to see her writing progress through this series. And I do want to know what's going on with the whole Shadowland Mist People Chosen Prophecy thing. Like, I want to know how that resolves itself. And I want to see what happens with her and the captain, and the information was intriguing enough that I want to know what happens in the next one. So I'm going to continue the series. It was not so bad that I will stop. And I do know that the author's writing gets better because I've read the books that she's written since this series has come out, and they're great. So, like, I'm harping really bad, but I promise it's not that bad. Like, the book is a good book. It's a good, easy read. Goes really quickly. The characters, outside of Shanti, the heroine I struggled with, I really don't like her at all. But the supporting cast was fantastic. Like, Sanders, the general, Sanders is hilarious. I absolutely couldn't stand him in the beginning of the book. I thought he was a boorish, gruff, stereotypical, I'm a man, I don't want to be doing this kind of guy. But then, like, the more I read, he's hilarious. His humor is dry and snarky and sarcastic and just funny enough that I ended up really rooting for Sanders, and I really want more of Sanders in the next book. And then she gets this little honor guard, which is like a troop of children, not children, young adults, a group of young adults who were like low-key assigned to follow her around when she's still a maybe prisoner. We're not sure yet. And they end up becoming really close with her, and she trains them and she works with them, and they end up like really progressing through their skills. And so I want to see what happens with them because I got really invested in their stories, and some of them were really funny. So there's enough in this book that makes me want to continue. And the magical system is so loosely defined in this first book. I'm really excited to see how it develops later. Because this book felt very much like a pre-book. This didn't feel like a first in a series. This felt like a 0.5. Like this could have been a 0.5 novella to the real book. So I'm willing to give it a go. I'm really upset that the audio person is the same though, because it's like if Siri, like if IA speech to text talkie and Shatner had a baby, that's who narrated this book. I only got about 5 minutes the first time before I had to turn it off, and I was like, I don't know what the hell happened, but I can't read this. And so I'm a little disappointed that that's the narrator, but I'll stick it through. I got a little used to her. Her pacing is very strange, but I stuck it out so I can do it again. So that's my review of Chosen by K.F. Breene. I did like it. It was a 3 out of 5. I had some serious issues with like the construction of the plot devices in the book, and it was filled with stereotypes and lectures about humanity. But I'm willing to stick it out to see the series improve. If you've read Chosen, totally give me your thoughts. I want to know, did I find the same things that you found irritating, or was I way just too nitpicky? Also, was I irritated because the narrator sucked? Like, that's a complete, I'm willing to admit that that's a complete possibility, and that a lot of my issues might have just been that I was already put off by the narration, and that might have just made me a little harsher. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on Chosen. Do the books get better? Have you finished the series? Anyway, thanks for joining me again. Do the whole like and subscribe, please, so I know what kind of content it is that you want. If you want more book reviews, I will try to read them faster and review them. As always, be nice to each other, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. My cat's very annoyed I took his chair.